Welcome back to the Lords of Lore Podcast Network. I'm Matt,
I'm Luca.
and we are the Lords of Lore. We are without Will today, but we will continue in his absence, and hopefully have him back. I think next week, and if not, the next. Yeah. So obviously, we're here to do our episode 5 review of The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime bars. Every time. Yeah, let's just get straight into it. But right before that, if people want to check out our main show, they can. Every Tuesday we have a new episode. Check it out on this here YouTube channel, or if you're listening on podcast on the same feed. Okay. Yeah, let's get into it. I just want your overall thoughts on the episode before we get into some of the nitty-gritty details. How'd you enjoy it?
I loved it. I literally just finished it like a few minutes ago. While you were talking, I was trying to remember what the first scene was. I can't remember, so I'll have to rely on you for some of the details of which order scenes came in. But it was awesome. Like, I feel like it was longer than the past couple episodes. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think the first 3 are like 45, and then 4 and 5 have both been like an hour.
Yeah, like it felt like it had a nice pace. Like, I feel like we had nice moments with characters. The villain was super developed, like that. The white cloaks guy, super scary. I don't like him.
Yeah,
like that scene was intense. Yeah, I loved it. Best episode so far. It's just getting better and better. Oh, and the city looked so good.
Yes. I like when I was watching it, I was thinking about what you said about Shadar Lagoth a couple episodes ago, and I was like, oh, Luke is gonna love this. But yeah, no, I share some of your same opinions. I love this episode. I don't know. It's probably episode 4 or 5 that I'd say are probably my favorites now. I would actually probably lean more towards this one because there was less action. There's almost no action in this episode, but and it's not so much that there was a lot of exposition. I felt like, the first 3 episodes were a lot of action. Episode 4 was a lot of exposition, and this was a lot of like character, maybe not development, but like insight.
Yeah.
Which I thought was awesome to see. Like, okay, we have the world, we have the situation. Now we're getting like how that affects the characters type of thing. As we sort of progress through this journey. The first scene was the funeral for the Aes Sedai in the war.
Yes.
I think only one Aes Sedai actually died in the fray, but some of the warders, and then they actually buried some of their like fallen enemies.
Oh, did they? I didn't notice.
They buried like the king from the first scene of the last episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like I don't know, maybe it's just like respect, but like it was a little bit weird that he was like buried alongside the others. I wonder if in the books that's explained at all, or
yeah, I didn't even notice that. That's a good catch.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really sad. I don't think anyone speaks in the scene. It's all sort of just like, we can see they're in mourning and then they're in shock type of thing.
And there's a singing happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super cool. Obviously, like this sets up Steppen's arc for the rest of the episode. Obviously, he's grieving. But yeah, I sort of like the setup, and then we get that first, I guess, time jump that we've seen so far in the series.
Yeah, 1 month later, right?
Yeah, 1 month later. Which I was pretty surprised by. It seemed like we were going on this sort of steady journey, and then it's like, a month later, and I'm cool with, because like, I sort of hate when we drag on the group is separated aspect, and they almost meet up, but nah, it's like sometimes for me that gets like, so like, I don't know, just like anxiety inducing.
I completely agree. And I like that the fact that it gives them like travel time, where like now we know they're a month and a few days away from where they started.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas like they're showing up and it's like, okay, so it's been 3 days, we've been following them the whole time, and it's like now they arrive.
Yeah.
So I like that aspect of it too.
I was talking last time we reviewed episode 4. We're talking about the map, Will and I, just how big it is and how small things we're currently seeing are in the grand scheme of the map. And the fact that it took them a month to get from where they were to where they were going, I was like, oh my God, this place is huge. It's wild. Where in like Game of Thrones, you get like Buddy running from the other side of the wall, the King's Landing toward, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so let's break this down into like I guess the character arcs were going on. So I guess it'd be like the Aes Sedai and the Warders,
Yeah.
And then we'll get into Matt and Rand, and then the Egwene parents. So, what were your thoughts on all the sort of new stuff and the new characters of the Aes Sedai and the Warders? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I liked all the arcs in this one. I liked seeing the White Tower for the first time, Nynaeve's little like introduction to the politics of the tower. Yeah, just super cool. Oh no, we're not. Sorry. When I thought about the tower, I saw the scene where Matt and Rand come into it, and I just remember how like nasty and evil Matt looked just from like immediately. I was like, that dude's not okay.
Yeah, he is not okay. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, I guess. But yeah, no, I do think like the first view of the city, it was later on in the episode, there's a sort of sequence where it goes from like nighttime to day in the city.
Yeah,
and it was really light. Yeah, it was really cool though, because like for a second I was like, why are they showing us Shadar Logoth again? Even like the water in between like the cobblestone looked like that sort of like fungus darkness thing.
Right.
I was like, whoa, and then it lights up immediately. And it was sort of like the way this show is sort of introduced like dark versus light. Not heavy-handedly, I'd say, in this, but it was cool to see like, you know, this is the city of light opposed to Shadar Logoth, which was like very obviously dark and drab. And I don't know, it just really highlighted how like bright and uplifting this like being in the city was finally.
Yeah, and like even the walls of the city I thought looked familiar just in our first few scenes of it. Like the way the sort of like how the balconies they had and like the way the walls were built, like it looked really similar the way they designed it.
Yeah. I almost wonder if there's like some reuse of like set design and stuff. That could be, but I wasn't looking closely enough to see stuff like that. Yeah, I guess let's talk about Lan's journey, because obviously we get the Aes Sedai, which are sort of more pulled back in this episode, I'd say. We do see like what's her name, Leandrin, scheming, trying to pull Nynaeve, you know, eventually to becoming a red Aes Sedai, which are being pitched as sort of like a antagonistic force. In terms of Moraine's story anyways. And you know, Leandra's just easy not to like because she is like a schemer and like but that's sort of all we got from them, is that there's conflict between them. There's a cool conversation between, I think her name's Alana and Moraine, where they sort of set up, you know, what we're going to see in the subsequent episodes with the, was it the Amyrlin seat?
Amyrlin seat, yeah.
Amyrlin seat. Yeah, so that was cool to get. But I think most of what happens in the White Tower is Lan's story, and Steppen's sort of grief. What were your thoughts on this arc?
I thought it was like nice to see an actual like grieving arc for a character who lost somebody, whereas like that's often very glossed over. I thought it was well acted for one. I thought like, it paid homage. Like it made the what happened in the previous episode added a bit of weight to it. Steppen's arc was interesting, seeing like sort of that side of the warder Aes Sedai relationship, like how it would affect them. And we got like some lore just thrown in where Lan says like a warder usually doesn't outlive or like survive past their Aes Sedai.
Exactly, yeah.
And then there was like Moraine talking about like undoing the bond in that conversation she had. So then it's like, was that like foreshadowing something between them? I felt that way.
Yeah, it was almost like she brought it up, and Alana said like, don't worry about it, like that's never gonna happen. But it was almost like she like her connection with Lan is so, you know, like tight that like she's worried like if she ever died, how he would go on. And I guess like my interpretation of it was that like she cared about him so much that she wanted to protect him from that eventuality should she die before he does. She doesn't want him to, you know, be in that sort of pain, so she was like researching it just like preemptively type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was like her almost foreshadowing her own death. And there's like that scene where they look at each other and she asked her like, what have you been doing out there like all this time for you to be like having this train of thought? And I was like, well, what has she been doing?
But then like when we see Steppen, like that was a cool like bit of lore, I guess, like when the Aes Sedai die, they bring back their rings and melt them down.
Yeah.
I wonder if like they melt them down and then those rings get turned into new rings, spinning that wheel again.
Yeah, and
Even
the flame isn't a wheel. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like the gold is melted into a wheel.
yeah. I was like, oh, sweet. I love the set design. But yeah, just like that story Stephen tells of like,
His past,
like he and his father didn't get along, and when he died, he sort of went into a I don't know, just like a drunken sort of
death wish state.
Yeah, just fighting anyone he could until he ran into Corinne. Corinne. I think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then like how she gave him an opportunity, and he says it like the pleasure of being her friend, or the honor, I think, of being her friend, and just like I don't know, everything just felt so like real. Like the grief he was like expressing was real, and the way his like the other warders comforted him felt just so like real and not like exaggerated for the sake of it being a fantasy, like oh, the bond is destroying me. It was very much like someone who had lost the love of their life and was sort of reeling from it. What were your thoughts on like that sort of funeral scene and stuff?
I mean, it just felt, like you said, it felt very like personal, felt very like grounded and human rather than like a theatrical and a performance.
Yeah.
Like that's why I was saying like it was a nice arc for him, like a nice way to show grief in a show rather than like either over exaggerated or like pretend it's not happening, just like gloss over. It's like that character's gone, let's move on type.
Oh, this reminds me, I actually read an article today. Someone asked Brandon Sanderson. For anyone who doesn't know, Brandon Sanderson, fantasy author, prolific, but also finished the Wheel of Time after Robert Jordan passed. But he was asked like what he thought about some of the changes, and I guess in the books, Perrin isn't actually married.
Yeah.
He just says at one point in one of the books that if he never left Two Rivers, he would have liked to marry I can't remember her name,
Leanne, something like that.
Yeah. And he said like, I just thought like setting something up like that, when you have a story like this, you don't often get to see like the trauma and grief that causes. And so it takes a little bit away from that character's experience when you write something like that in. Fulfilling what that should actually look like and how that would actually play out is something that's really tough to do in a story like this. So he was like opposed to it. But then I saw like what the showrunner said was like, a lot of the things that people didn't like about the books was that, you don't really get to know Matt or Perrin from the start, and that they wish there was something more like in the first couple books. So that this is like the way they went about it. And I thought that it was like a cool way to, bring in some more character to those people. But obviously I think Brandon Sanderson's ultimately right here, and that it does sort of feel like, using a woman as fuel for this character. Like they're just sort of like disposable, I guess.
It was, because even the introduction, like that's what we said when we were reviewing episodes 1 and 2, right? 1, 2, and 3, where we were like there was no feeling of this is my wife, like this is my father, like we're about to lose these people, like let's get to know them, like let's give them some weight. Whereas like we don't even know her name. They said it a few times in episode 1, 2 through 3. I know it was said today. I mean in episode 5, like when in the Perrin and Egwene arc,
right?
And I still can't remember her name. So like that character was completely disposed of. Just
which like I can understand the showrunner being like, this wasn't a character anyways. So but it still just doesn't sit right with me that it's like, which I thought was interesting that like, out of the gate, there's things that one of the two lesser, I guess, of the two voices who contributed to the making of this was like, I don't know. But
I think it kind of feels like if you're gonna do it, don't do it halfway.
Right.
Sort of like if you're gonna do it all the way, or just don't do it. Don't sort of like introduce this character for a moment. Have one scene where Perrin says, "I love you," just so like, oh, okay, they love each other. Like this is
I
an
don't even
important
think she
character.
speaks like in that scene. I could be wrong though. Anyways,
She has a few lines, but
yeah,
again, it's just
yeah. I just hope that they give it the respect a story like that deserves. And I will say, like throughout the subsequent episodes, I feel like they have. Like it's
mhm.
something that his character is still dealing with. I just
Yeah.
hope it's not like by next season, it's like, oh yeah, that sucked, but now I'm doing other things.
And that's the thing, like if you're gonna add something like that to a character who is gonna be in the show, like a main part of the cast, now you've
Mhm.
added like a major event that you have to keep writing, otherwise it loses all of its weight.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you've added a story string that never existed, that now you have to continue this whole time. Like, why? Just for a
Yeah.
character we saw for what 45 seconds of screen time before she was killed.
Yeah.
It seems,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, moving back to this episode, I guess. But yeah, so we see Stepan reeling from his grief and losing of Karini. And then eventually, like, you know, there's a setup scene where, he explains he used to be a drunk. He comes to Nynaeve drinking and drunk, very like, visibly drunk, and then asks her for like the sleepy time tea, basically. And she gives it to him because he's saying he's having trouble sleeping. And then we got the scene where, it was actually pretty cool to see he was doing like what looked like a smudging, uh, you know, um practice or worship. And I can't remember what they said it was for, but he was warding off Ishmael, um,
Yeah, it was like the
who's
god of, or the spirit of lies and deceit or something.
yeah, it's like I think Ishmael gets referenced in a few episodes earlier. He was like had something to do with the Dark One.
Yeah,
Um,
they were like mortals who sold their soul to the Dark One for
yeah,
immortality.
I think Ishmael might even be the person who brought the dragon to the Dark One last time,
Right.
something like that. Anyways, I thought that was cool to see like something like that. Could be a little bit appropriative, but
I mean, it could also be straight out of the book. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
there's
So
a lot of cultural world building from the book, so I don't know if they
right,
like took it out or just another
yeah.
thing that it changed and added.
But I love that like we get the reveal because like him and Lan have this conversation, and then Lan wakes up after having drank this tea that he didn't realize was sleepy time tea. And immediately, I don't know if you felt the same way. I was like, oh no, what has
Mhm.
Stepan done? He's betrayed
Yeah,
Lan. He's gone and killed Nynaeve or killed Moraine or
I
something.
thought the same
Yeah,
thing.
I was like that bastard. Like this was Cell job the whole time. Then I felt immediately like a fucking ass when you
Yeah.
find out what it made sense. And I don't know. I think like Lan never expected him to do anything untoward.
Mhm.
I think like as soon as he woke up, he knew. And seeing like they show that quick shot of the knife, one
Yeah.
knife missing, and it's like, and he's booking it through the hall, and just to see like that urgency of
Mhm.
like he cares for his friend, and he's worried about him. Um, Even like before the funeral for Karini, um he like they have like a weird exchange where he's like, you could always join up with Alana and these two guys.
Yeah.
He was like, well, first let your Aes Sedai die, then tell me what to do. And then they both like give a look where they're both like, I was wrong. Yeah, I was wrong too, without speaking at all. I thought it was really cool, like to show like their understanding. But then obviously, yeah, we see Stepan has taken his own life. Just I guess like the in-universe answer, like that bond just being too much to bear after losing your Aes Sedai. It's not the natural way. Like I guess it's sort of like hinted at that Aes Sedai live longer than their warders, and just naturally like based off how they operate, it's usually the warder that goes first,
Mhm.
and so like there aren't the right setups in place to help someone who's reeling through this, which I thought was another reason why it was cool Moraine brought that up. Um, but yeah, what were your thoughts sort of like on Stepan's, I guess, complete arc and his end?
I thought it was well done. Like I just thought it, like when I saw Lan run up the stairs, I was like, oh, okay, I think I know now
Yeah.
where this is going. And the funeral scene for Stepan was very well done. Um,
Oh man, I cried.
do you know what kind of got me was the last scream where he was like, ah.
That was very R&B music video. Usher dancing in the rain type.
Like, yeah, no, there was weight to it almost all the way through it until that moment where I was kind of like, okay, this is a show.
I loved it though. Like, I don't know who that other character was, but the other guy who was like, Lan approached the body and
it was just a completely new character. Seemed like some kind of like elder of their order.
I can't remember what his exact words were, but he's like, so we can all grieve.
He said release us from our grief.
And oh my gosh, like I don't know if this is inspired by some cultures practice or funeral rite practice, but this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like, just like this cathartic experience of everyone sort of joining in this like rhythmic chant almost, where we just watch someone like literally unleash all their grief. And like the way he was screaming, it was, I don't know, I thought it was like a really beautiful communal sort of grieving process, which I think, like, just to jump outside the universe here, like even in our own world, like grief is such like a taboo thing in a lot of ways. Like, it's something that everyone goes through, but there's never like good ways to deal with it. I thought this was like super interesting because it was like, this is something that we've come up, we don't know how to like, or no real effort has been made to look into like severing the bond and moving on if you do survive your Aes Sedai. And this was like a really cool, like, communal thing, I guess. I don't know. I just thought it was super beautiful. Do you have any more thoughts on it?
Yeah, it was just a really like heavy scene that was just like really well done, like the beating, like the rhythm of it, and then like his scream, how it just sonically came together it was heavy. It was very heavy. And that's what it needed. Like, it needed that serious, heavy tone to like round off that arc.
Yeah.
And now, like, we'll see how Lan goes on without what seems to be like his best friend.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like even that scene we were sort of harping on last episode where, we thought Stepan's axes look weird, but even that scene, like, regardless of that, like, it did set up their relationship in this episode. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. Let's move on to Matt and Rand. So we see them finally show up in the White City, or White Tower. I don't know what it's called.
I forgot the city's name.
But yeah, what were your thoughts sort of on this arc? Obviously, you said Matt was looking haggard when he came in.
Yeah, that dude looked evil. Like, he looked just like irradiating this just menace. And it was in this episode, right? We saw them on the road first, and he like snaps at those kids.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, like he looked bad. It was funny, like, see them next to each other. Like, Rand kind of had some like smudges on his face, but like a clean, crisp cloak after like what was a month on the road.
Right.
And this guy's just looking how he should. Like, they should both kind of be looking like that, but ooh, he looked bad. And in this, I think in this city is what got me, is because it was so like bright and lively, and then it's like this guy just like
doing the walk of shame. The best was like Rand, like, he's like in Costco, he gets like the free sample, and he's like, for me, I can have this? Oh my god, it's delicious. Do you want some? And he's like, no. You're like, oh man. There's something really wrong with this guy right now. He's not taking the free samples. Then we get the introduction of, I don't know what this character's name is. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, the Ogier. Or is that his name?
I think he is an Ogier.
Okay. I think he asked him if you're an ogre, and he says I'm an Ogier. Like, I don't know what the distinction is, but cool. I love this character.
That was awesome. Loyal.
Okay, cool.
His name is Loyal.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, I didn't know there was other races in this universe besides Trollocs and humans that were like humanoid creatures. Aiel, I guess, but I thought they were like a type of human.
They looked human, but I don't know. They killed that one just on sight.
Right. But yeah, so it was cool to see, like, and they remind me of like a Furbolg from D&D.
Yeah.
Just sort of like aloof and like, oh, humans, like, It was super funny. Yeah, what were your thoughts on the character?
I thought the CGI looked really good on him.
I think it was practical.
It had to be CGI.
Well, anyways, it looked good.
It looked good, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that had to be. That was so, he had such like a square, broad nose. I feel like it could be practical. Either
It might
way,
have been like a prosthetic, but either way, yeah.
It looked great. He was hilarious. Just like I knew that there was other races. I didn't know, like I don't know anything about this, like the Ogiers. I guess, I mean, he seems to be long lived.
Right.
He talks about humans like aging quickly, and just seems like he seems like an intellectual.
Yeah.
And like his sort of back and forth with Rand was just, I live for that kind of like script style, like that dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the conversation where he talks about like a girl in my village used to read this. It's like, oh, I bet she's a woman now. You guys age pretty quick. It's like, what a weird fucking thing to say. But I love that. It reminded me of a character from Critical Role called Pumat Soul, who's a Furbolg. But just has like that same aloofness and like sort of like candid. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really cool. Well acted. And then we see, did you catch Patton Fane, I think his name is, the character from the episode 1 who shows up in the cart
with the giant teeth,
and then he leaves smiling when the Trollocs show up.
He was there when they were taking the
dragon,
right? Yeah, was he like it was that scene, like, just as they passed, like we see him laughing or something?
Yeah, so we see Rand look up and see Matt sitting on the balcony, and then he goes up and we see Matt looking down, and then we see that character look at Matt and then like walk away. Yeah.
I did notice him. I almost forgot to mention. I would have forgotten. But the one thing that was super cool about that next scene was when the dragon looked at Matt and Rand. Yeah. And like Matt could see him like maniacally laughing, but then like when it cuts to the next scene, he's just like sitting there.
Right. Yeah.
So like to me, that seemed like Matt could see his like emotions, almost like his actual thoughts play out in front of him. Right. Whereas like the rest of the world just saw him like sitting there catatonically. And Rand didn't seem to see anything weird either.
Right.
But to me, it seemed like that man saw Rand, like the false dragon saw Rand and then started laughing. And then Matt saw him and like he could see that, like his reaction to seeing them.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like if there's a man who's a channeler, if they can pick up on other men who are also channelers. And if that's why he was like, laughing maniacally. But like there obviously has to be some sort of connection there, because that was strange. And I loved how like Matt was seeing it one way and then we cut over to like Rand's view and it was completely different.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I don't know if something's going on, like if Logain still has some sort of power, or if Matt is completely like losing it at this point and like hallucinating. And then it reminded me back to what the Gleeman was saying, with like how his nephew went mad type of thing. Right. Like didn't want to tell people because they would think he was going mad type of thing. And then it was sort of too late by the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was one thing in this episode that was quite jarring, and it was the cut between Nynaeve having a conversation with Leandrin, and then in the immediate next scene, seconds later, showing up at the door of Matt and Rand's place. Like,
when Loyal brings her?
Yeah, but it was sort of like Leandrin was like, you could go to the gardens and do what you want. And then the immediate next scene, he was like walking in. It wasn't even like she walked off and you're like, oh, maybe she's going somewhere.
Were those scenes back to back?
They were back to back, yeah. Or maybe there may have been a scene between them, but it was like, to me, it felt like super sudden. And like, they didn't explain. Like, I don't know if something got cut, but like, I don't remember them explaining Matt saying, I'm looking for someone named Nynaeve who might be in the White Tower. And
like when Loyal came, or Loyal, I don't know how to pronounce it. He came, and when he showed up at Rand and Matt's place, he was like, oh, like I have access to the White Tower. Like I found the person you were talking about. It's like, I don't
remember that.
I don't remember Rand talking about anybody. Yeah, that was weird, and like it felt like a sudden jump.
Yeah.
Another scene that felt like they had edited like into this episode, like what we were talking about from like episode 2, where
Right.
there's just
Oh,
like it
right.
just seems like they filmed like a lot of scenes and then kind of cut parts of it together.
Yeah.
Like that was very jarring.
Which is strange because like I wonder like where that's coming from. Because like when you do like a streaming show, you're sort of like free reign, you know what I mean? Like especially a show like this, like I don't think like staying within an hour is like imperative to the success of the show.
Yeah.
When it's like a movie and you're like passing that 2.5 hour mark, then it's sort of like then there's like you can calculate how much less money you're going to make based off how many times you can show it. But this is streaming. You can access this at any point in any time. I don't know. You know what I mean? I wonder if there's like Amazon's like, no, you see like retention drops after the 60th minute or whatever. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I thought that was weird that like they would cut things out and not explain, you know what I mean? Like,
well, it was that line where he said like, oh, like I found who you were talking about. Like they talked once.
Yeah.
Like literally the last conversation they had was Rand telling him he'll see him out there. And then the guy's like, oh, humans like never preparing for what's coming. Like, and then straight to the next scene where they meet is like, he finds his house and he's like, oh, this is your friend you were looking for. Like, yeah, that was,
yeah, that was strange. The one thing I did like about the scene though is like he brings Nynaeve in and just continues talking while they're having a conversation, just like so
like explaining, oh, I found the braid and like it's indicative of where you come from.
But they're just like completely fucking having their own conversation. I love that. But then we see like how bad Matt is doing. Like snaps at Nynaeve in that one moment.
Yeah,
he's like happy to see her, but then as soon as she like show me your tongue, he's like, get away from me. I wonder how Will would have thought about it, but I don't know what's going on with this guy. He was obviously puking out the fungus last episode, but like now it's taking over to the point where like it looked like the dagger was controlling him last episode. He needs Rand to reassure him that like what happened at the farm wasn't his fault,
and clearly multiple times.
Just like I wonder where this is leading, because it would seem like like the Aes Sedai might be able to fix this issue, but as soon as they get to town, Rand's like, we're not going there yet, and that seemed to like aggravate Matt. So I don't think it's something that he shared. I think he's trying to like keep it to himself. I don't even know if he knows if it's real. Like if he does have the ability to channel and he thinks he's losing his mind because of it, like this might be something that he thinks is a part of that. So he's choosing not to share.
But he's never like, even in private, like in his own scenes, he's never channeled at all. Like all he has is the dagger. So
I wonder if he's like the dagger's just driving him mad, and that's all there is to it. But I wonder if we'll get a reveal of some sort of channeling.
Plus, like what we see from like his quote unquote madness is nothing like what we saw from both Logan and that one man in the very first episode.
Right.
Because he's not even like, Matt hasn't been hearing voices really. He kind of like almost hears like a sort of like a whisper or something when he like snaps at people. There's like that second voice over his voice or something. But there's never been any indication of like what he's seeing, or like how, like they're not hinting at him being mad in the same way that they were.
Right, exactly. So I'm interested to see, because I think that's the last we see of those two in this episode.
I think the last scene is when Nynaeve is telling Rand the story about Egwene when she was a girl, like when she was 10 years old.
Right.
I'm pretty sure it's the last scene with Rand in this episode.
That was interesting too, like the bone breaking fever or whatever.
Super scary and would not want to go through that.
No. But so let's move on to Perrin and Egwene here. So obviously they're still traveling with the Tulathon, I think they're called, the Tinkers.
The Tinkers.
And then they get intercepted by the White Cloaks. The White Cloaks suck. They're serving as like this antagonistic force. Obviously we know, like I almost forgot that they had ran into the whole group of them before. So he picks them out of the crowd. They try to get away. They get caught. And then we get into this super, super uncomfortable scene of them undressing Egwene and bathing her. and then putting her in white robes, which I like. I don't know. It just made me like sick to my stomach. Like it was, yeah. But and then we see, you know, her being interrogated by I don't even remember his name.
Yeah, me neither.
But this creep, he's just so like, I don't know, menacing. It's such a good actor.
He's menacing in like a super like joyful, sadistic way.
Yeah, like he definitely enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is it Yvonne? Is that the character's name? He says his name, he calls himself Child something. No, I think Yvonne is actually the warder. But
yes,
anyways,
the warder. He asked to be called Child. I can't remember. I just watched it, but I cannot remember.
Yeah. So yeah, this interrogation scene, and then ultimately giving them the choice to choose which one of them will die. You know, if she doesn't channel, and she does.
Yep.
And she you know, throws that fireball at him. It's like,
yeah, that was like, almost cool.
Yeah, pathetic. But yeah, what were your thoughts sort of on this storyline? And then I guess the reveal at the end that there's more going on than we knew with these wolves.
Yeah. It was very intense. Like those interrogation scenes were tense to say the least. Perrin's reveal that he's something, I don't know. His eyes went wolfish. The effect wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst.
Oh, yeah, it looked fine to me.
I noticed it very clearly. So I was like, okay, it's not the worst. It's not the worst.
Yeah.
I honestly thought the wolves would attack as soon as he started getting cut. Like when they started howling, I thought that was going to be like,
oh, see, I didn't even realize that.
Like, well, I mean, his eyes went yellow when he started getting cut, and then the wolves all started howling. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, see, I didn't pick up that. Like my first watch, like I was just like, damn, like he's going through it right now. But like when his eyes changed color, I was like, oh, that's strange. Like I wonder what that is. But I'm still curious because like his injury, I thought was caused by the Trollocs.
Yeah,
and we saw like the effect Trolloc poison had on Rand's dad and as well as Moraine. But he seems less affected.
The only thing I remember from that is when that wolf licked his
wound. Yeah. But even then, like the wolves didn't attack him then. It wasn't like they licked it by chance. It like they came to him and licked his wound. Yeah. So I feel like this is something that was set up even before the Trolloc attack. Yeah, like that, like maybe his bloodline or something like that. They keep saying like you guys have the old blood in you, and I wonder if there's some sort of like I guess like a druidic aspect of some of that where he has this ability type of thing to commune like with animals, because it almost looked like when the wolf licked him, it was like healing his wound, because since then it hasn't really bothered him.
Yeah.
And then yeah, obviously like the wolves show up and start wrecking shop and taking out White Cloaks, but not before Egwene just cold stabs. His name is Iman Valda, Child Valda, stabs him in the shoulder.
Yeah, I was hoping she got him. Like it looked like he was in the clavicle. Yeah, but he was moving after. I was looking. I wanted that dude dead, but
yeah. Like I want him dead because he's an asshole, but I want him to stick around as a viewer because I'm like he's such a he's a
great
character.
Villain.
Yeah. But yeah, like his shock at seeing what Perrin was, how he broke out of the thing after his binds were loosened.
Yeah.
I thought was super cool. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that wolf control ability, but
I mean, it felt like once he made that first contact with the wolf that licked him, it was like, I don't know, like activated something in his bloodline.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Just feels, but there's been only wolves. So I don't know if it's like a warg type. It just feels like he's got like, I don't know, the soul of a wolf, maybe.
Yeah. You know, I was going to say too, like the wolf licked his wound, but it's almost like they smelt him. You know, and that's why they came and approached, and you know that's why they didn't attack him the first time, because like they smelled like wolf in his blood, maybe something like that. Like, So like, yeah, I don't know. Like,
I mean, yeah, there's been no.
yeah,
This is the first time they like directly said
yeah,
this guy is. I mean, his eyes went yellow and
yeah. But
he
even
looked like
on the
Hobo. And
way there, I think episode 3, when they like sort of guide him to the people of the leaf.
there is that too, but like now it's clearly something in him where he
Right.
has some kind of powers on top of. I mean,
Right.
he also looked huge in that scene. Like he just
Oh,
looked
right.
massive.
Yeah, maybe
when
he is
stood
like
up.
a shapeshifter
Maybe.
or werewolf type type beat. Yeah, do you have any more thoughts on the storyline or the episode in general?
Not really. I'm excited for next week. I feel like it's just getting better and better.
Yeah. I agree. I'm enjoying it more and more. I think maybe the first 3, I think maybe that's why they put them out, all 3 of them, because
Yeah.
they felt less, or I guess substandard to the subsequent ones.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping. But I have been met with a lot of people in either Lords of Lore DMs or my personal DMs who, are not happy with the show, fans of the
Okay.
books, which obviously, like you and I talked about on our main show. We talked about adaptations. I guess by the time people are hearing this, it'll be next week, so look out for that. But I just think it's so strange that like you and I were enjoying the show so much, that like it's weird for me that people aren't enjoying the adaptation, the people who are fans of the books. But I feel like the show is coming out so good, so like I don't know how to reconcile that.
Like I honestly haven't been watching the criticisms that people that have read the books have. I don't know. Like, what have you been hearing that people aren't happy with?
Just that like there's been some like fundamental changes to I guess things like the prophecy, and I've seen like the showrunner explain that like it's not so much that the prophecy has changed itself, just people of the world can't interpret it the way maybe it was interpreted in the books, so they're leaving it more ambiguous for the show, and that the implications of who might be the Dragon Reborn are not the same as they are in the book.
Okay.
But then like I think when we did our trailer review of this show, I was like, when they do adaptations, you have to give them the room to change things so that you're still surprised and happy when things go the way you thought they were, or when they don't, or when they shouldn't.
I mean, for me, it's like if I'm seeing an adaptation of something I've read, I want the story to be the same.
Yeah.
Like I don't want them to change, for example, like in this, for example, if they changed who the dragon is, like that's like unacceptable. For me, like I haven't read it, but like if I had read it, to me that would be completely unacceptable.
I agree, but do you, if that's the case and you find that out as someone who's just watching the show, would you care?
I mean, as somebody who hasn't read the book, I wouldn't, because I don't have that like, it's that whole like I'm not a huge fan of, like I have gripes with something like The Witcher or whatever, because I've read and played the games. Right. But then with this, like I have none because I haven't read the books. But I can understand the perspective of somebody because like I have been in those positions. Yeah. So for me, it depends what they change. Like already with Perrin, like knowing that in the books he doesn't even have a wife, that like completely changes the motivation of his character, and like his arc is completely different. Even if he follows the same beats, like the reasons are different, and like his character's fundamentally changed. So if somebody read the book and then saw this show and wasn't happy with that change, I can understand that, like,
right,
that annoyance.
Yeah, that's fair. There was the reason I was sort of thinking about this, obviously, because I've had people message me, but I was reading Dune last night, and this is not very spoiler. So, but if you've seen the movie, that scene where there's sort of like the attack on Paul, and the Duke reacts in a certain way to the I think Mentat, I think is the title, Thufir Hawaz or whatever, the guy with the white eyes, where he tries to resign. Yeah. And the Duke just like yelled at him, like, someone tried to kill my son. The scene is so much better in the movie than it is in the book. In the book, it's sort of like an internal monologue that the Duke is having. It's like, I can't believe someone tried to kill my son. They tried to take the life of my son. And then when the guy resigns, it's sort of just like, come on, man, we all make mistakes. But like internally, he is worried about it. But in the movie, it's so much more like like, shut up, I don't care about your personal failures, there's bigger things on my mind, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think like we just have to let people who are adapting things have the opportunity to change things, and if they turn out bad, then it's bad. That's fair. But to just the action of changing something, I understand, like, if there is, like, if they adapt Rage of Dragons and it's not a 1-for-1, I'll be like fucking flipping tables and shit.
Exactly.
But I think as someone who's like not as tied to the source material as other people are, I'm just like, just let it breathe, man. Just
I know, but like it feels hypocritical to say that when yeah, I know that if they made the Sword of Kaigen, which they should, like if anything changed, if they're like, oh no, like we can't, spoilers, have a main character die at the end, and be like, what are you talking? Like, shut the hell up. Yeah. Why are you making this then?
You've gone away from the very point of the story. Yeah, no, I totally understand I'm definitely being a hypocrite because I'm enjoying the show. So I'm like, yeah, shut up. No one cares.
But exactly, but like I'm right there with you too. Like I have no problems with any choices they've made because I haven't read the books. So I'm like, this is the story.
Hey, this is great. People are just like screaming at us through their monitors. No, it's not. Yeah. But the one thing people can take away from this is that you'll always have the books. They're not going anywhere. So if you prefer that story, it's there for you.
Exactly.
Okay, on that note, that'll do it for our episode 5 review. As always, you can check out these every Saturday morning. And as well as our main show every Tuesday. We talk about fantasy and sci-fi topics and, bring some segments to the show and open that floor up for discussion. So check that out. Podcast or YouTube. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel so you're getting all those juicy notifications. As always, I'm Matt.
I'm Luca.
And we are the Lords of Lore.